Hello again, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Ronner, and thank you for listening in to a brand new episode of Deeply Rooted.
Deeply rooted in God's Word. Deeply rooted in God's Word.
Hey there, listeners. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Deeply Rooted. This is episode 53. We're really excited about the conversation we're going to have today, but as always, make sure you go on over and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us there on Facebook as well. And if you want to go on over, if you're into the podcast scene, alternatively to YouTube, you can find us at Apple Podcast. Again, you can look for us under Deeply Rooted. All the episodes there on YouTube, and if you want to dig in a little bit further, you can find us on our website. That's at jeremiahreiner.com. We've got all of our blog posts, our ministry schedule, and all of our episodes that we've recorded here for Deeply Rooted. So if there's anything you've missed or want to share with somebody else, you can go back and do that as well. But make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment. That helps get the word out there as best as possible, and you sharing that with other people is really the best form of communicating that to someone. So if you want to do that, we'd appreciate it. And if you'd like to send us an email and get in touch with us, that's drigw18@gmail.com. Again, that's drigw18@gmail.com. Now, with that out of the way, we're really excited to have a good friend of mine here. He is the pastor of Midfield Freewill Baptist Church. This is Brother Josh McKinney. He and his wife Becky live in Elizabethton. Josh is a bivocational pastor here at Midfield in Kingsport, Tennessee, and he also works for the Tennessee Housing Development Agency. So Josh, thank you so much for being on the podcast, buddy.
Thank you, Jeremiah. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Real quick, right off the top here, what is your favorite part of pastoring?
Well, I think it's the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't really pastor without the people. I think some people have tried that. It doesn't really work out. But for me, it's always been just the privilege to serve folks. I think I love people, and I really do everything I can to help them and help them get better and be better versions of themselves through the power of Jesus Christ. And that's always been my passion is the people.
Yeah, hard to shepherd nobody.
Yeah. I guess you could try. You could just sit out there in the fields by yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Not really pastoring at that point, are you?
When did you officially start here at Midfield?
I was elected in February of 2015, February 2nd.
Okay,
Super Bowl Sunday.
You're coming up on 5 years.
Yeah,
really.
this is my
year 5.
Yeah, fifth year. Yeah.
All right, great. I've got some family and some friends that go here, and I know they talk really highly. I mean, we've had a chance to be in service before, so
Sure.
I really appreciate your preaching and your ministry. So
I appreciate
a lot of
that.
good things going on here at Midfield. Let's go ahead and hit the Wayback Machine for a second and kind of catch everybody up to speed about your story. So explain to us a little bit about how you got started in ministry, and I guess really is church something that's always been a part of your life, or is that something that you got engrafted into later?
Sure. I'm really privileged, Jeremiah, that I've been raised in a family that honors and loves the Lord. And so from my youngest age, I was raised up to fear and honor the Lord. And my grandfather, Sherman Grace, was a minister, and 2 of his sons are ministers. Got an uncle on my father's side who's a minister. So
Is that all in Northeast Tennessee, your family?
it started in Northeast Tennessee, but now they've moved out.
Gotcha.
My uncles have gone to other places, other parts of the country. But yeah, originally it all was here in Northeast Tennessee. Yeah, but I was taken to my grandfather's church when I was a young child, and then he got out of ministry when I was around 5 or 6. We went to my mother's home church from that point, and then I've been in church ever since. So there's never been a part of my life where I've not been a part of a church.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
when were you converted?
So, it was done in the way that I think really the Bible tells us we ought to do it, that, you raise a child up
Sure.
from an early age. And I can remember about 7 years old making my profession to my pastor at that time, Winston Sweeney. So it was just this natural thing where I was taught to honor and love the Lord and taught about Jesus Christ, and came to this age of realization and determined that I needed to be saved. And so I professed to my pastor on a Bible school Monday night, in his office. Easiest conversion that pastor ever had, I'm certain, because I knew exactly what I told my mom earlier that day. I think I'm going to get saved today, and she said, okay, that's great. And I don't think we even had the Bible school message. I think I remember we had a little prayer, and then I raised my hand, and the little Bible school teacher said, "Yeah, Josh." I said, "Okay, I want to get saved." She was probably jumping off the walls when I did that. So, yeah, from that point forward, it's been in God's family and in the church.
Now, when did ministry enter into the picture? And what age were you considering that, or felt like, hey, this is something the Lord's definitely calling me to do?
Yeah, when I was in my teenage years, I went to fellowship. I don't know if you know the Fellowship Freewill Baptist.
Sure.
It's on Bloomingdale here
Sure.
in Kingsport. And Winston Sweeney passed away when I was somewhere around 12, and Jeff Davis came in to become pastor there. And I'd always desired to be a part of a youth group, because I had friends who were part of these huge youth groups, and they'd go on mission trips and go do things, and I thought, man, I want to do that. I want to be part of that. And we just never had a youth minister at Fellowship. And we had folks who would come in and kind of volunteer, parents and other people, but nobody really stuck. Mm-hmm. So when I turned 18, the day I turned 18, we didn't have a person in charge of the youth or helping the youth at that time. So I said, you know what, I'll do this if I'm allowed to. And they allowed me to, and I did it for 10 years. So I was a youth director there at my home church for 10 years, serving those kids.
Right.
So that was my first dip of my toes into any type of ministry, other than, what I'd done growing up.
Do you remember your first message?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I certainly do. It was a message about Peter walking the water. I'm pretty sure it had 27 points, and I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding about that. It definitely had 27 points. I remember telling the group, "Hey, I got 27 points today," and everybody just eyes wide. I almost killed a lady. Unfortunately, you'd think, now how do you kill a lady during a church service? Well, I've been preaching for so long. This poor lady, somewhere about the 6th row, fell asleep. I'm certain she did, because she was drooping. And I used the boy who cried wolf story as an illustration. And at one point I yelled, "Wolf!" And she shot up like a rocket. I thought she was having a heart attack. So I remember my first message. It was about an hour and a half long, and all nervous and scared, but it got better, obviously.
So besides youth ministry, do you have any other roles that you've actually been in churches besides youth leader and obviously pastor now? But
sure, I've directed choirs before. I've never been officially in the role as a choir director, but I've had the opportunity to lead choir and lead music and sing a part of groups and things like that.
Now, as far as being shaped and molded, we've all got influential people in our life, and I could talk about those, and so could anybody else that's been in ministry. But as far as you're concerned, who's probably been their biggest mentor or influence on your ministry?
Sure. I wish I could claim a mentor, because my father, when I was 3 years old, my father passed away. And so I was raised in a only single parent family, only my mom, and I was an only child. So I never had any siblings. I never really had a father figure. Now, my grandfather, Sherman Grace, the one who was a minister previously, he stepped into that role in a lot of ways, and he obviously had a huge influence on my life. But I have always, my entire life, had a hunger for mentors, and I don't really think I've ever had anybody really step into that role for me. So I can't claim any mentors. But my grandfather, Sherman Grace, has been a huge influence just on how to be a man and how to be a servant of the Lord, and obviously how to do what's right. And he's gone on to heaven, but I'll never lose what he gave me. As far as my preaching goes, my biggest influence would have to be probably somebody I've only met once or twice, but Pastor Johnny Hunt. Have you ever heard him preach? When I was a youth director, we would go to Extreme in Gatlinburg, and he was almost always the conference pastor for that. So I heard him preach several dozens of times, and I've just, as far as the way I preach and the way that I approach God's Word, he's had the biggest influence on me, because he preaches with such passion and such desire for God's people to really understand and to thrive in God's Word, that I try to emulate that as best I can. So I would say that he's my biggest hero, I guess you want to call it, not a mentor, but a hero in the faith, in the sense that I try to be a lot like him in the way that I approach preaching God's Word.
Now, you touched on music just a second ago, and I've actually had a chance to hear you sing before. You do a great job, and you talked about your background there in choir directing, but how do you incorporate that gift into ministry as well? Because obviously that's not something every pastor is gifted to do, although I think a lot of us would like to have that in our background. But do you still incorporate that a lot, even to this day, and are you still pretty active in that?
Sure, yeah. I'll say two things. I think that obviously, I love music, and it's a big part of my life, and my whole family loves music, and they've always sang, and I've been a part of that. But I think that God does prepare us, especially for the roles that He intends to bring us into in life, and the folks that He wants us to serve as ministers. We all have different ministries,
right.
Jeremiah. And my ministry, it would seem as though I was being prepared more to minister to youth, but I've always been a part of churches where the primary demographic is blue hair, 60 and older,
sure.
Almost, and ministering to those types of folks. Music is a huge part of their worship experience, their church experience, and it always has been. And so it is such a blessing that I have the opportunity to connect with my people that way, sing a song that they really enjoy, or that really touches their heart, or it really challenges them. And so I try to always incorporate that in some way into what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Now, the flip side of that is I struggle sometimes with, I don't want this to be the Josh McKinney show where I'm,
sure.
I'm the variety hour. I'm going to give a devotion a minute here. I want to pray here. I want to sing here, and I want to preach. And it's
right.
an hour and a half of just me. So I don't obviously sing a song every message. I don't sing a song every service. And some people ask me, well, Josh, why don't you do that? And so I could probably get away with it, but I do want to create opportunities for other folks to use their talents, obviously. So it is a tremendous asset to me. I probably could use it more, obviously, and I could probably put a lot more onto it. But I try to use it as God leads me to use it,
sure,
and encourage and inspire others to use their gifts as well. So it's a huge part. Can't deny that.
Now, juggling all that, we mentioned in the intro that you're what we would consider a bivocational pastor. And so for people that are out there listening that may not know what that means, simply Josh really has two jobs, so to speak. This is probably not his main means of income, so you have a, for lack of a better term, a secular job that you have to go out there and provide for your family, and also pastor at the same time. So, by definition, we would not necessarily call you, on paper, full-time pastor, although
yeah.
as well as I do, you're certainly full-time on the call 24/7. But
sure.
Explain how you balance all of that with marriage and pastoring and work, and even sometimes you mentioned leading in music. So where's the balance there?
Yeah, I do that poorly sometimes. That's how I manage it. Well, I've always had this philosophy about work, that it might just be that I'm privileged or that I'm so blessed, but my philosophy, even as a young man, was if I'm going to do something for God, that has to be a priority, obviously. And if I make it a priority, then I have to trust that the Lord's going to enable me to make that a priority, I guess is what that means.
Right.
So I've never sweated or worried about what I'm going to do as a job or as a career, and then balancing that with my ministry, because if I were to lose my job tomorrow, I just trust that the Lord will give me another
right.
means, and if it has to do with me ministering, why I lose my job, which in this day and age could certainly be the case,
mm-hmm.
You can't ever deny that, then I just have to trust that God's going to provide. So obviously God is my priority, and then my family, and then my church, and then my career, and that's kind of how I order those. And even though my career is important to me and it takes up a lot of my time, I just can't worry about it. I do the best I can. I serve, and I see it as a means to honor the Lord, obviously, as Scripture teaches us. I see it as an opportunity to reach people and to minister to people, which I do try to do. But I try to keep it where it's at, and then make my ministry my priority as best I can. And then, of course, create opportunities to rest, recharge, relax, and to spend time with my family as well. So, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but God is able to make it work.
Now, how did you, get interested in the type of work that you do now? I don't care if you talk about maybe what you do for a living and how you got into that. Sure.
So I've been in the housing industry for about 10 years now. I spent most of my career as a housing counselor, and as a housing counselor, I've done a lot of things. Do you know what a housing counselor is, Jeremiah?
No, I don't.
Okay, so a housing counselor is an individual who helps individuals obtain safe, secure, affordable housing. Primarily, that could be if someone's trying to buy a house, then They give them the counseling, money management, credit counseling in order to get to the place where they could buy a house. If they need rental housing, then they give them that type of training. If they're already in a home, but they've lost income or they're facing some hardship and they're about to lose their home, I've done foreclosure intervention counseling where I try to help someone create a plan to avoid foreclosure, or if they can't avoid foreclosure and they got to lose their home, how to help them lose it as gracefully or as best as possible and then get into other housing. So all of that is kind of enveloped in that. Now, I don't do that as my primary job anymore. I now train realtors on how to use the state's mortgage programs.
Okay.
But I still do education. I still do outreach. And it all is really important to me because obviously people need housing, and I, as I said at the beginning, my greatest joy in ministry is the people, getting to serve people, getting to help people. And as in this career, helping people get into homes, that there's few things as good as that,
right.
And so I get a lot of satisfaction. I get a lot of joy out of that. And, I look at this as a means not just to only make money, but to help make this world a better place and to be blessed that my career is allowing me to do that.
Now, is that something you went to school to do? Is that your original?
No, not. I don't know if anybody could ever go to school to go do that because
Right.
there's no like, I'm gonna get a degree in housing counseling. That doesn't exist. I went to school I was going to be a journalist. Is what I was going to be, and then I decided that was too limited. So then I decided I was going to go to broadcasting because people tell me I have a good voice. And so I tried that for like a semester, and I was like, I don't like this. I'm not really into this. So then I switched over to public relations, which is kind of you jam all that together, writing, social media, broadcasting. You put it all together, and then you can serve in any of those roles really. So I thought, okay, that's what I'll try to do. But graduated, got out of school, obviously, tried to find a job. And my first job was at a nonprofit housing organization, and then it just kind of rolled from there. I've got to use those skills, but it's not what I primarily went to school for. Absolutely not.
Now, where did you go to school? I know you were a graduate of Sullivan North. And
Yep.
then after that,
Sullivan North, ETSU.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Now, are you able to minister well through your occupation, or is that something that you kind of got to toe the line a little bit?
Yeah, I think everybody can minister through their career, no matter what the restrictions are. So I encourage people, obviously, in my ministry to do that. Look for the ways to do that. So my team knows that I'm a minister. Most of my team are believers, from what I understand. That's how that goes. But I'll give a good example here. So they know I'm a minister. Several months ago, we had our first message coming back from lockdown. It was on Facebook. One of my team members had seen it. They mentioned it on a team meeting, and then all the team wants to see it. All the team wants to hear it. So I got to share that message with my supervisor, my big boss, my supervisor's supervisor heard about it. She wanted to hear it, so I sent it to her, got a good message back from her. So yeah, there's great opportunities. And of course, when you're working with people in the field, when you work with realtors, if you're working as a counselor, working with people, facing foreclosure in the hardest times of their life, I mean, there's definitely a spiritual component to that people need to be ministered to under. So I have had the privilege to be able to incorporate what my faith is and the gospel into what I've done with every facet of my career to this point. So it's been a blessing.
How would you describe your approach to ministry, or I guess style, maybe, if you had to put it that way?
Sure. So I'm fairly hands-off, which may not be what you expected to hear, but I am fairly hands-off. I preach for conversion, I preach for edification, and I hope that my message is encourage the growth and the strengthening of the people who are listening. Now, I used to be an only expository preaching type individual. Then I got some feedback a few years in my ministry that made me reconsider that. And so I've gone to more of a 60-40 topical expository preaching. I usually preach only topical messages during the Sunday mornings, maybe Sunday night. I typically preach expository messages on Wednesdays. I'm the kind of minister that if you need anything, I'm going to drop whatever I'm doing, I'm going to be there for you. And I think that's what's required of the men in this vocation. And I'm certainly going to have plans and goals and a vision for our church and for our programs and for our ministries. But I think that at least at this point in the ministry, what God wants me to do is to try to capture people with the vision that He has for them, and then see them take the impetus, and take the step and step up and determine that they're going to serve, So I think you could come into ministry, and we're going to get to that. I'm certain what advice I have, but you can come to ministry with, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I'm going to change this, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change this, and that doesn't always work, And sometimes it can be to your great, deficit or whatever the word is. So I try to spend time in prayer. I try to spend time in God's Word. I try to determine what the leadership is of the Spirit for the people that I serve, and I encourage. I suggest what I'm looking for. We've got a list out there of the preacher's prayer requests. These are things that I think our church needs, and I'm praying for. And I want you to help me pray for it, church. And I want you to be the answer to many of these prayers, church. But I'm not going to come up to you and tell you, well, now you're a Sunday school teacher, or you're now my youth leader. I'm going to mold. I'm going to shepherd. And that's more of my style.
What's the single biggest lesson that you've learned in pastoring?
I think that it's that people generally do what they want to do. Again, that might be a surprising statement from me, but I really do think that, people, how long have you been in ministry, Jeremiah?
10 years.
10 years, okay. Yeah. So you probably can attest to this, but people come to you, they have a question for you, they want to know what they ought to do, and I'm certain that you've been in the situation where you listen, and then you tell them, you answer their question, and then they're like, I don't know. I was thinking more of this, and then you're like, okay. And they're like, oh, thanks, Jeremiah. You just helped me figure that out. And I'm like, no, I didn't. You already knew what you wanted to do, but you wanted me to endorse it, right? And I kind of generally feel that's the same across every facet of ministry. Now, God can change hearts, and He does change hearts. And He changes minds, and He answers prayers, and He brings people exactly to the place where they need to be at the exact time in His plan where they need to be there, right? But in general, people are going to do what they want to do. So I can't force you to believe the way that I think you ought to believe, or to do the thing I think you ought to do. And I just have to come to terms with that. And I think people are at their most moldable when they're sitting in the pews for that 30 minutes you got them during the hour preaching, because now they're sitting there. Hopefully they don't have any preconceptions. They don't know what you're about to talk about, and they're just listening. But when they come to you and they have something already in their heart and their mind, and they have an idea of the way they want to go, then that's what they want to do. And if you go to them and tell them you want them to do something, they may respond to that if they've already been leaning that way, but they may not. So it's kind of finding those areas where the desire in your heart as a minister matches up with the desire that God's been cultivating in the heart of the individual, because that's how He works. And those are where the most excitement and the greatest things in ministry occurs, when that matchup happens, at least in my experience.
Now, if we're thinking ahead here, how would you like to be remembered by the people around you? Like, let's say years down the road, Lord willing, Josh McKinney's 80, 90, 100 years old, and, we come to his funeral. What do you want people to say about the life you lived and the ministry that you had?
That's a tough question. You sent it to me ahead, and I thought about it. I thought about it a lot. I hope that people will remember me as somebody who cared about them, I guess. Mm-hmm. Somebody who served them. I don't want to be remembered as some great leader or some great,
right.
Something awesome. That's not really my desire. It would be great if I was, but what I greatly desire is that people would know that I care about them, that I loved them, and that I served them, and they would have those memories of me doing that. And if I could have that, then I think I've been successful in my ministry. So that would be my greatest desire.
All right, we're going to close out here with some rapid fire.
Okay, I'm nervous. All right, let's see.
We have a good time with it.
Okay.
So we always do this in our pastor profiles, so it's always fun. So real 10 quick, fast, right off the top of your head, short answers. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number 1, dogs or cats?
Cats.
All right. Number 2, beach vacation or mountain?
Mountain. Absolutely.
All right. Number 3, favorite candy bar?
I have so many. Milky Way.
Okay. Number 4, worst job you've ever had.
Worst job. Oh man, there's been so many. Probably the worst job that I had was, I have to say, okay. So my very first job I had was my mom worked at a daycare center, and she's like, "Oh, you want a job, Josh?" I was like, "Sure, that'd be great. I need some more money." And it was like, "Okay, all you have to do is come and clean this entire 12,000 square foot facility, in the span of about 4 hours, twice a week." And that doesn't seem bad at all. I mean, it really is not.
Right.
But I was like 14 at the time, and it was just, I can't believe I signed up to do this. I didn't have, we didn't have phones then. I didn't have podcasts, so it was just me and myself and my mom. So that would have to be the worst one, I think, for me.
Favorite Bible verse?
Favorite Bible verse. It's right there on the wall. Psalm 118, verse 17. I shall not die but live, but declare the works of the Lord. I want that on my tombstone, because I want everybody to know that because of what God's done for me, I'm not going to die. I'm going to live forever, and I'm going to declare what He's done for me.
Yeah. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Ooh, now that's a tough one, Jeremiah, because if I say the wrong, I got to say something spiritual, right? I got to be like, my favorite movie, if I'm going to give you the honest answer, it is rated R, Jeremiah, okay? So I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, it's Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood. Okay. That is my absolute favorite movie. Yeah, my favorite movie of all time. Yeah. Love that movie.
All right, let's see, number 6 here. Worst message you've ever preached in your mind?
The worst message I've ever preached. Oh my! It would be tough for me to remember that, Jeremiah, because I probably want to forget it. I would say it was probably a message. I can't give you a specific example, but when I was a youth minister, youth director. Oh, can I give you this? Can I go a different direction with this? Yeah. Okay, I got something that's better than a message. Okay. So we would do youth Sundays as a fellowship, and that'd be the day when all the youth are in charge of the service. Our youth would teach the Sunday school classes. We would have a little youth skit, and then we'd have like a youth speaker, and it was usually me. I'd usually preach. But we had a guy who was coming from this, some college. I can't remember his name right now, and he didn't seem really genuine to me anyway. Mm-hmm. But he got there, and he was like this big luminary. He was a big get for us. And right before he got up to preach, we did a skit about lost sheep, and me and the other kids were dressed up like sheep, and it was like this dumb skit, And he got up, and he just did not. I could tell he did not enjoy that skit, and he just thought it was the dumbest thing he'd ever seen, and it just felt weird. So that's probably one of the cringiest moments in my ministry that I can remember. And if it was a message, it would probably be one of those Youth Sunday messages, because I was pretty green. I was pretty green at that point.
All right, number 8. Last book that you read.
Last book that I read. Well, I have to be honest. It was. I'm a big nerd. Huge nerd, so I like the fantasy stuff, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. Now that's the spiritual way, but Brandon Sanderson, I love his books. Way of Kings is I finished it last night. Way of Kings, it's a huge epic fantasy novel. So,
all right, favorite Christian song.
Favorite Christian song would have to be. I would say "I Shall Rise" by Chris Tomlin. I love that song. It's a beautiful song. It's got a beautiful message, and I love singing it. So I'll go with that one.
All right. Last one, number 10. Favorite restaurant.
Favorite restaurant. Again, I got so many. I'm the most agreeable person in the world, so I just love everything. If I go to it, I love it pretty much. So I'll give it another spiritual. I like Farmer's Daughter. In Chucky. Is it Chucky?
Yeah.
Is it Chucky? I love going there. We take the church sometimes.
Awesome.
Lots of good food, all you can eat. Lots of good fellowship. So.
Yeah, that'd be a good one on top of the list.
Yeah. I'll say that.
Well, there you have it. 10 rapid fire questions and a great interview. So hang tight with us. Yeah, there you go. We're going to be right back with a couple of closing announcements. So sit tight. Hey everybody, thanks for hanging tight with us. We're going to come back here with a couple of closing announcements, and I'm going to turn this over to Brother Josh in just a second, but we want to thank him for taking time out of his schedule and allowing us to come in here at Midfield. So we're technically live for us on location, but this will be recorded for you, so we appreciate all the people here at Midfield and Josh. We've had a lot of good times over the years here, and good to come back and visit with him. But as far as way of announcements, I'm going to turn it over to him and let him explain what's going on here at Midfield Freewill Baptist and invite you guys out as best he'd like to share that with you.
Thanks, Jeremiah, and thank you for letting me be a part of the podcast today. So we have obviously everything's up in the air right now, but right now we're back to Sunday morning services and Wednesday evening services. Our Sunday morning services start at 10 a.m. for Sunday school, 11 a.m. for the morning worship hour, and then our Wednesday night services begin at 6 p.m. Of course, we are here in Kingsport, 1801 Granby Road, Kingsport, Tennessee, 37665. If you want to reach me, you can always reach me at my email address, jmckinneypr@gmail.com. That's my name, jmckinneypr@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Midfield Freewill Baptist. We also have a website, www.midfieldfwbc.org, where you can find our messages and the things that are going on with our church. This month, as long as COVID-19 allows us, as long as the Lord wills, we're going to have homecoming. We're going to have homecoming on August 23rd. The service will start at 10:30. We're going to have the Crystal River Boys with us in concert. If you've been around Kingsport, I'm sure you know those guys. And then we have Chris Dotson to preach for us. Chris is the executive director of the State Association of Freewill Baptists. He's a tremendous preacher, a good friend, and I know that if you want to come and be a part of that service, you're really going to enjoy it. So we invite you to come be a part.
Awesome. Well, sounds good. Make sure if you're in the area and you're looking for a church, maybe looking to visit, make sure you check out Midfield Freewill Baptist. I know you'll be blessed by it, not just by the pastor, but a lot of good members here. I think that's a reflection of good leadership and just good sound service and following of the Lord. So can't say enough good about these guys here. So as always, again, make sure you subscribe and follow us on our YouTube channel as well as on Apple Podcast. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you follow us on Facebook and get on over to our website. That's jeremiahreiner.com, so you can find all these podcasts, these episodes, blog posts, ministry schedule, and so much more. So if you're a friend of Josh's, if you're a church member here, it'd be a great way to share that and get the word out about this podcast. And if you'd like other people to hear that as well, if you've got family or friends that live in the Kingsport area, maybe they're looking for a church, it'd be a great way to introduce them to Midfield, to share that with them, and so they can get some info here about the pastor and what's going on. So until next time, we hope you have a great week in Jesus.